Johnny Carson, legendary, quick-witted, and effortlessly charming. As the longtime host of The Tonight Show, he had a rare gift for turning even the most awkward moments into comedy gold. But behind the scenes, not every guest was a delight to interview. In fact, there were a few that really got under his skin. Carson was a master at keeping his cool, but even he had limits. And when certain guests crossed the line, the tension became impossible to ignore. Some of the names on this list might surprise you, so stick around, because we're diving into the interviews that left Johnny Carson absolutely frustrated. Let's start with one of Hollywood's most legendary actresses, Bette Davis. Known for her razor-sharp wit and commanding presence, Davis had a reputation for being difficult. And when she appeared on The Tonight Show in the 1960s, that reputation followed her. She arrived unprepared, leaving Johnny to do all the heavy lifting just to keep the conversation moving. But instead of rolling with it, Davis fired, back with snarky comments, making the already uncomfortable interview even more unbearable. Now, Carson was a pro. He could handle tough guests. But when Davis made a cutting remark about the show itself, that was it. For one of the few times in his career, his frustration was visible. Johnny Carson did not tolerate disrespect, and his icy response made that very clear. Then, there was Charles Grodin, an actor who seemingly made it his mission to irritate Johnny every time he appeared. Unlike most guests who embraced Carson's playful banter, Grodin took things in the opposite direction. He pushed boundaries, often pretending to ignore Johnny's questions altogether. One of the most uncomfortable moments came when Grodin sat stone-faced, refusing to engage in conversation. Carson, never one to let an awkward moment go to waste, sarcastically quipped, "This is the best interview I've ever done." The tension in the room was thick, and for once, the king of late night seemed genuinely fed up. But if there was one guest who truly tested Carson's patience, it was Orson Welles. A filmmaking genius, yes, but also a man who loved the sound of his own voice. When Welles appeared on The Tonight Show in the 1970s, Johnny barely got a word in. Welles launched into long-winded stories that had nothing to do with Carson's questions, completely taking over the interview. Johnny, ever the professional, tried to steer the conversation back on track. But as Welles continued to ramble, the frustration on Carson's face became harder and harder to hide. It was less of an interview and more of a one-man show. And Johnny clearly wasn't enjoying the performance. And then there was Joan Crawford, a Hollywood icon with a diva reputation that preceded her. From the moment she arrived, the tension was undeniable. Reports suggest that she was rude to the crew, and if there was one thing Johnny Carson couldn't stand, it was arrogance. The interview itself felt stiff and forced, with Carson barely concealing his annoyance. The whispers behind the scenes? Carson simply didn't have the patience for Crawford's larger-than-life ego. And honestly, watching that interview, it wasn't hard to see why. Of course, The Tonight Show was known for its charm, but as you can tell, not every guest was easy to work with. Despite the occasional nightmare interview, Johnny had an incredible ability to turn even the most uncomfortable moments into entertainment. So, the next time you watch an old Tonight Show clip, just remember, not all those laughs were real. Some of them were Johnny's way of hiding pure frustration. Now here's the real question. Which of these guests do you think was the hardest for Johnny to deal with? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss another wild story from TV history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.